everybody. Sort of a small turnout today, but that's all right. I hope everyone's having a great Wednesday and a great week, productive with your writing, and that everything is going well in your lives as well. I am Bob Schultz. I am Bob your Script Uncle is the show, and I am thrilled to be here on what is today, the 29th of March, 2023, to talk about John Wick 4. You may notice that I am wearing an American Major League Baseball cap today of the Boston Red Sox. It is tomorrow is opening day for the Major League Baseball season, and it's often said that the opening day is the day of dreams. Every team has the same chance to be champion come the end of the year. So I like to sort of embrace this day as the teams all travel to their first games to sort of embrace the notion of potential and wonder and hope that may or may not pay off 6 months from now. But tomorrow I have plans set aside to watch opening day for my team, and many, many millions of fans all around America and around the world have the same. So it is, it's just a day that where anything feels possible. And that is a fantastic feeling to have. I've got some developments in the career happening on the writing side that I'm going to be sharing very, very soon with everybody. But before that, let's talk a little bit about John Wick 4. I just have a few comments, opening comments. Spoiler-free for John Wick 4. Spoiler-free for everything I'm talking about, except maybe a little bit for John Wick 1. But these opening remarks are going to be relatively short, and then I'd love to hear what some of you are working on or watching. Rather, I think if you don't feel like sharing, that's fine too. We could just make it a short one today. So thank you for coming. I saw John Wick 4 yesterday, and it's a ride, man. It is great, a real fun experience, a terrific time. And there are a few lessons that could be learned from it involving, how important it is to raise stakes in your story, how stakes at the beginning of your story ought to grow and become more treacherous and more difficult for your hero throughout the course of your story. The same is true of expanding the world of your story, as well as character growth and expressing bold themes. So let's get into it. Number one, raising stakes. I think that it's very important to avoid a flat, uninspiring script. And I think that very often we get sort of roped into the beginning of our story, and we get roped into sort of not recognizing that the way things are in the beginning of our story and the characters as they are at the beginning of our story are often the ones that we fell in love with as writers when we first decided to write it. But we need to avoid a flat, uninspiring script, particularly if you're doing a series, but the same is true as if you're doing a feature. Different settings, different styles, different ways to sort of grow. These are all important, but only if it works in terms of specific stakes that grow and change as your story moves along. Whatever is dangerous for your character in the beginning, whatever the risks that your character is taking in the beginning of your story ought to be less challenging than the stakes at the end of the story. And they ought to grow as the story goes throughout. It seems like pretty basic stuff, but a lot of the scripts I read from people just starting out their writing sort of stay flat in terms of what the challenges are. And I think what that does is loses the value. It diminishes the value of what causes of what a story is, which is a character with an opportunity to sort of grow and change. And if the character might succeed or fail anywhere along the way, but if your character succeeds in growing and changing at any step, then the challenges that face them in the beginning shouldn't be as difficult for them to overcome, and you want to keep things difficult for your character. So, for example, in John Wick 1, the story was very small. It was a very small story in terms of scale and scope. He had vengeance to deliver, and he climbed the ladder until he could deliver that vengeance. The stakes weren't all that high either, relatively speaking. I mean, you and I, we all know how much I love dogs. So avenging his dead dog, of course, is incredibly big. But when I speak stakes, I don't want you to mistake that for thinking in terms of the motivation that your characters have. Those that I think that is often how we misinterpret stakes. By stakes, I mean, what will the consequences be if your character fails in his quest, in their quest? Okay, you want to make sure that if they fail, the consequences will be catastrophic, at least to them. And in stories where the consequences would be small, then you can find comedy, or you can find drama, you can find tension in the fact that even with these small stakes from our perspective, they are huge from the perspective of the character themselves. I think in terms of, like, let's say Harold and Kumar go to White Castle. Man, they just want sliders. From where I'm sitting, that's not huge stakes. But from where they're sitting, that is the biggest thing in the world, is to get those munchies satisfied. So make sure that the stakes are high in the mind and in the belief of your protagonist. John Wick surrendered everything in John Wick 1, everything important to him in his quest for revenge. Now, of course, we started with a damaged hero who already had lost a lot of that was important to him. He had one last memory of his dead wife, and this was this dog who she delivered to him. Then the dog gets killed too. So in his rage and grief, he was willing to sacrifice everything that was important to him that he had left. It's a powerful theme. Our grief and rage can destroy us too, and we learn through the context of this story about the importance of not allowing that to happen. However, by the time we get to chapter 4, just came out this past weekend, the world of assassins that John Wick occupies is full of, it is bursting with lore and history and rules and laws, and how it operates outside of our existence. It lives. I was pointing out to my wife, we were watching Fast and the Furious 5 the other night. Thank you, Deborah, for watching Fast and the Furious 5 with me. I was pointing out how so much of the movie is about how the characters in the movie live according to a specific code. They might live outside the law, but they live according to a code. And the same is true of John Wick 4. It is dripping with code. It is dripping with, this is how we operate in a civilized society of assassins. And the more that you can make your world powerfully real, particularly if it's outside of that which we are familiar with, the more we as readers and audience members will become engrossed in the story and want to immerse ourselves in it again. The world of John Wick 4 is so much bigger and broader and deeper in all ways than John Wick 1. And there was no notion really that it was ever going to get this big, but giving ourselves the opportunity to grow and change with the world is fantastic. Even if your script does not have 3 sequels and 1 more greenlit, by the way, the same rule applies. We want our readers to swim across the ocean with us. We want them to swim across the ocean with our characters, and you cannot swim across the ocean unless the characters take those first steps into the shallow water. Okay, but if the water remains ankle deep through the course of your story, it's not interesting enough and the challenge is not great enough. So it has to get gradually deeper and deeper until it seems impossible that they will successfully traverse the ocean, until finally they find themselves on the shore of the new land. As these stakes grow, so does your character, right? This is one way that real life is reflected in the stories we read, the stories we watch, and the stories we write. The tools, the emotional and mental tools, that physical tools that got us as far as we are, won't necessarily get us to the next level, the level where we want to be, the next thing. Just it won't necessarily. I was not born with the tools that I need to survive day to day now. I did not enter my 30s with the tools I need to survive day to day now. So as we grow and change, we must recognize that we need to develop new tools, and we are always learning. We always have these losing your virginity experiences with different, new, and amazing things, and our characters must do the same. Screenplays, movies, stories in general are designed to, they're designed to help us recognize and make recognizable life as we live it. It is a symbolic representation. It makes orderly the chaos of life, and I think that's amazing. That's one of the amazing things we do. But as writers, we must do this. You have to execute it. The characters who support us and challenge us will get more powerful and exploit our inner demons to an even greater extent. The things that we want to accomplish are going to get more and more difficult to accomplish as the world moves on. Are we prepared to do what it takes to meet those challenges? I can't speak for any of us. I hope that I am from day to day. Some days are better than others, but we have to make sure that our characters are not prepared as they enter a phase, and then get prepared, gain wisdom, gain strength, overcome obstacles, gain anything to grow and change. And those things in screenplays in particular tend to be physical in nature, or at least metaphorically physical in nature. You have to get the antidote and bring it to the hospital. They have to get the enchanted sword and bring it to fight the dragon. Whatever it is, whatever inner journey your characters are taking ought to be represented by some sort of external goal that is very easy to picture, that is real. We are talking about moving pictures after all. No matter how much we as humans think we have moved on from our challenges in life, from the hurdles we have overcome, we are often still plagued by our flaws and doubts. Our characters are the same, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but whenever I have trouble sleeping and I'm awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, I am tortured by mistakes I made 20 years ago. If only I hadn't said that thing. Oh my God, if only I hadn't got on stage with my fly down, right? These things that torture us, and sometimes more important things. I wish I had said something to that person before they left my life forever, and now I've lost the opportunity. We are plagued by our flaws and doubts, and characters are very often the same. Look at the growth and new challenges moving from season to season on, for example, Ted Lasso. Season 3, by the way, is underway, and it's fantastic so far. Take a look at Succession, which just started season 4. Also great, with characters who grow and change, and some who refuse to grow and change, and how they are treated by the writers, how the stories either punish or reward those who are willing to grow and change. Take a look at, if you have Apple TV, check out Shrinking, which just finished its first season. Harrison Ford and Jason Segel. Great show, really insightful about who we are and how we deal with our burdens, our emotional burdens, and so on, and how we can get sucked into the quicksand. Expressing these things dramatically or comedically or with horror is our way as writers to help process, but also it's our way as writers to help other people process. We have all of us found a piece of art in our lives, be it a movie, a TV show, a book, a piece of music, something that was exactly the message we needed to hear when we needed to hear it. Something has found us when we needed to be found. And we have found something when we needed something. Either it's an anchor holding us from being blown away, or it's a feeling of being seen, that our feelings are not unique to us and that others have gotten through it as well. This unifying influence is something we can bring. The issue is, of course, that we don't know what the readers, what the audience, whatever, are going to be bringing to the table. We don't know what their baggage is, what they're struggling with at the time. So we need to just be honest and forthright about what we are saying in our stories, and trust that when we put it out there in the world, it will get found by someone who needs it, in the same way that we found the things that someone else put out there in the world for us. take a look at what you're watching and really enjoying right now. Take an analytical look at it. Try to turn off your heart for a moment and 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 just take a analyze it and examine it from the point of view of a writer. How does it work? So you're watching something that works. Okay, you're watching something that engages you emotionally. You're watching something that engages you dramatically, that you look forward to the next episode, or that you really enjoyed the movie. How do the challenges mount up in that story? Ask yourself this question. I'm feeling something. What did the writer do to cause that emotion to occur in me? How do your characters develop and change to face these new challenges? Asking yourselves these questions is the way to improve your writing, because you can duplicate those techniques. That is how stories are done. The more I hear people say, I don't want to watch this thing because I don't like horror. I don't want to watch this thing because I'm not into comedy, or I'm not interested in football, or whatever it is. The more the more I need to advise them, you can still gain value from a story well told, even if the subject matter is not something that interests you. The plot, the story, the characters, they're important, and they will certainly make the experience more enjoyable of what you watch. But the mechanics, the gears that turn in a story that is effective, are roughly the same all the time. So as writers, we need to recognize that anything that reaches an audience has value, and watch it even if you don't care about necessarily what the plot's going to be. We are beholden to learn how to be better. We are beholden to learn how to be more successful. And you do that by examining that which is better and more successful than what we are doing right at this minute. It's just a good way to live. And it's a good way to become a better writer. Growth of the stakes, increasing the stakes, creates growth of character, which then leads to the expansion of the world. They're all interconnected, right? They all link. John Wick 4 is a globe-trotting visual feast. It is a beautifully shot movie with a fantastic character growth and interesting developed characters and everything. It is operatic in its approach to the art of storytelling. It is sumptuous to consume. It is 2.5, 3 hours long, 2.5 hours long, let's say, and it does not feel like it. You feel privileged to have been part of this wonderful thing. It is shot with grace and beauty, even when the scenes are a bloodbath. How you write, your voice, what you decide to deliver in terms of story and plot and character are important. How you decide to deliver it is your decision, and what's going to make it really, really appeal to people. Plenty of those of you who have taken courses with me or have heard me speak hear me say, it ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it. That is the best way to think about your writing. The more you are afraid, the more you are reluctant to take big, bold swings, to say things you want to say to them, regardless of how the audience may or may not receive it, the better. You need to be strong. You need to be confident. You need to say the things you want to say the way you want to say them, because there's nothing more important than that. You are delivering a message, and how you deliver a message is just as important as what is in the message itself. The movie John Wick 4 is stylish and graceful and magical, and there are at least 3 monumental sequences that are destined to be all-time classics. There are going to be times when you see this film that you're going to be taking a bite of popcorn, and next thing you know, it's going to be 5 minutes later, and the popcorn will still be in your hand, approaching your mouth, as if to say, I just got sucked in and I could not get sucked back out. They are brilliant and beautiful and fantastic. I cannot wait for this to be released on video so I can go back and watch them again and again. They are master classes, not only in how they're shot, which is beautiful, but also in that within each scene, within each moment and beat, there are stories to be told. There are introductions, amping up the stakes, ending of the moment, then into the next one. Screenplays are fractals. The small is the same as the large. The parts are the same as the whole. It's, if you zoom in with a microscope on a movie this big to start off with, then zoom and zoom and zoom and zoom, it will look the same in terms of structure of every scene, of every act, and of the movie as a whole itself. As for themes, well, if character growth and raising stakes are the fuel that makes the rocket launch, the rocket of your story launch, the themes are the astronauts that the rocket is delivering to outer space. The existence of the rocket and the fuel, which is your theme and your plot and your stories and your structure, those things only exist in order to keep the astronauts alive, in order to deliver your themes. That's it. John Wick 4, you'll hear every review talk about how it's shot, the action sequences, the beauty of it, all this different stuff. But some of the themes include examining arrogance and humility, about forgiveness, about destroying yourself in the pursuit of destroying others, about how our actions impact the ones we love, sometimes to destructive consequences, loyalty, community. Without these themes to examine, it's just a bunch of fight scenes, which, as gorgeous and engaging as they are, it is not something that is going to nourish our souls and bring us the level of joy that's going to make us thrilled for having spent our precious time, energy, and money to see the thing. It is more than just delicious air. It has substance, it has nutrition, it makes us better for having watched it and gives us something to discuss and talk about. It is so difficult for me not to spoil this movie while talking about it, but out of respect for other people's experience, I choose not to. We feel for John Wick and for every other character in this movie, because of the messages that Shay Hatton and Michael Finch, the writers of the film, decided to deliver to the world through the process of writing this movie. The screenplay is the most important thing to make sure that those elements that give the story power are present. The director expresses those, the actor expresses those, the composer, the costume designer, the stunt people, everybody has a role in expressing those themes, but they come from the writing in the first place. That is our job, to make sure that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and that the pieces of wisdom that we want to share with the world are part of the screenplay, regardless of what your subject matter is. Our stories, just to wrap it up, our stories are delivery devices for us writers to share what we believe and hopefully improve the world in the process. We can use the raising of stakes, we can use the expanding of worlds, character themes, character growth, and bold themes to get us there. But the more that we apologize for the things we do, for the things we like, the more that we lack the courage of our convictions to tell the world what we believe to be powerful messages that we can deliver to children, men, women, anywhere on the gender spectrum of any culture, the better. Watch RRR, watch John Wick, watch Cocaine Bear, watch the Fast and the Furious movies. Watching any of these, what people consider to be cheap action movies or are apologetic for liking, and recognize that writers had something to say, and know that that message will reach a wider audience if they package it in a way that is fun and entertaining and fantastic. Those are my thoughts on John Wick 4. Go see it, it's great. And if you have to wait for video, then do yourself a favor and turn off your phone for a few hours and give it the attention it deserves. Anyone have any thoughts or comments? Ideas?
I wanted to say that I absolutely agree with you about John Wick. A lot of people, when I say to them, "Have you watched John Wick?" there is that, why would I be watching John Wick? I'm not. It's a lot of blood and gore. And then I say, no, just, you will have different feelings as opposed to just trying to hide behind the cushion when there's the blood and gore. And I'm going to watch John Wick 4, but I've just started back again with John Wick 1. And John Wick 2 is going to be on TV. So I'm just waiting for that to record so I can watch that again. But it seems like, I am a writer, obviously, but it seems like such a huge task until you actually sit down and write. And then when you read back what you write, you do realize, because I'm not really I do plan a bit, but I do let the characters take me somewhere. But you do realize that is you, that is what you think about things, but it's coming out of the mouths of your characters, you know. And I absolutely agree. Sorry, I absolutely agree with you that it is so much more satisfying when you watch an action movie and it does deliver a message that resonates with you in your general life.
Yeah, it's thank you, Giselle. It's very telling, you know, that your stories, I said it before and I'll say it again. Sometimes we tell stories, sometimes the stories tell us. You know, if we have the confidence to let go and let our stories go where they're going to go, even if they are not part of the outline. If you're a planner, I'm like you, Giselle, I'm more of a pantser than a planner. But even if you are a planner, if you outlined everything, if you find yourself lashed to the outline, like someone on a sinking ship lashing themselves to the mast and then sinking with the ship, it can ultimately harm your story, or at least harm your experience of writing it, because you're almost using it as a life preserver instead of allowing your story to soar. And I think that originality is important, but more so writing with confidence, taking big swings, character changes that or plot developments that not only would no one reading it maybe have thought of, but that you or I might not have thought of while we're writing it. You know, there's nothing greater when you're writing than the experience of being surprised by something that happens in the story. In the same way, when you're watching a movie, you get surprised by what happens in the movie, except for it's not a movie. It's supposedly coming out of my own head. It is a piece of magic that makes the experience of writing so great. And I think that one piece of advice every writer I've ever asked, who, you know, is higher than I am on the ladder, about what's going to make my writing better, it was always enjoy the process more than the product.
Yeah.
You know, the process of writing is, if you start thinking of it as your own reward, its own reward, the other rewards will come. But the privilege of sitting down and writing a story in a way that is joyous and energetic is a gift that I can give to myself. And if the script turns out to be good or sells or whatever, that's just a bonus.
I think it's when you the other film that was a surprise to me was The Accountant. I don't know if you've seen that one. The films that I think resonate with me or stay with me are the ones that I wish I had not seen before when I see them again. Because I want to create that same feeling of, and the first one with that was probably The Sting, where you think one thing has happened and something else has happened at the end. I won't say what it is in case people haven't seen it, but it's those and the same with John Wick. You think, oh, this is just, I can sit down with this for the John Wick one. Oh, it's Keanu, I'll watch it because he's in it. And then you're so surprised. And I don't really like, as you just said, I don't really like blood and gore. And I recommended it to my sister and I said, oh, you don't watch John Wick 1? She said, I was full of blood and gore. Does it get any better? I haven't replied to her yet. But yeah, it is. And that is really what you want. I absolutely agree with you. That is what you want to do with your own scripts, is to have that element of surprising yourself. So therefore you surprise, you know, as you say, the first reader and when the film's on the screen. And that's the adventure. Yeah. And if you're not having that adventure, I think it's too much hard work. it's too lonely, it's too hard. If you're not, as you say, your motto is write with joy and confidence. I think, yeah, don't sit down unless you're having a blast.
It is fantastic advice. And I offer this advice knowing well that sometimes I struggle to achieve it. Sometimes I'm slogging through just like anybody else, but it's so important to remember that for writing a first draft, writing something on spec, that is the last time you have control over that story. So you might as well enjoy it. It's like, I have no control over what someone's going to take from my story when they read it. I have no control what'll happen when it turns into a movie. Budget, actors, directors, producers, the world at large, everything that alters it. I love that process. Don't get me wrong. I like to think of writing as planting a seed, and I don't exactly know what the plant's going to look like when it grows, but I get to control that story for that amount of time. And I might as well enjoy it. And the more that I struggle to say, am I getting it right? Am I getting it right? Well, the answer is you're getting it right if it feels right to you. If you're enjoying yourself, you're getting it right. Anything can be fixed later, but if you're not, yeah.
I think, well, you always have, what I learned through my process is you always have that first draft for yourself. Because I do doing project with other people, and the outline is given, we give suggestions, and then I'm doing this episode. So I write my first episode, my first draft of the episode, trying to include what they want. But if it doesn't, I've got to the stage of my writing where I don't mind, because I really like this first episode, and they may really like where I've taken this episode. And then I print it off and put it in a brown envelope, and I've got it there.
Yeah.
And so whatever rewrite that I have to do, I still do the rewrite with joy, because I think, well, what else? How else could this be? And I think that's the part I like about collaborating, is that you can have your own space to create what you want, because you write it, you hand it in, they take a look at it, they say, can you change this, and this? And when I first started, I was like, oh my God, you're making, they say making you kill your baby. Oh my God, I don't want to change it. It's perfect. I love it. But no, as long as I print it off and put it in a brown envelope, it's there for me in perfection forever. And I might come up with something better. And what I've discovered is you can. There's not only one idea in this brain of mine.
Sure. And, we all have, depending on our writing circumstances, we all have different masters to serve. It's like when I'm writing something on spec, I'm writing it for myself. When I'm hired to write something, that person has final say. When I'm writing a part of a writer's room, everyone's ideas ought to be included until the showrunner makes the final call. But still, the process, the privilege of being able to put words on the page is something that is not, I'm lucky to have found the thing in my life that brings me joy. And to inject, not everyone has, people are seeking it even now. But injecting that joy into the story itself, expressing that joy on the page, works even if I am not writing a story about joy. Your friend saying it's full of blood and guts, it's true, but you can taste the energy that went into, the positive energy that went into writing it, the thrill of storytelling on the part of the actors, the director, the writers. The thrill of storytelling is contagious, even if the content of the story isn't necessarily for me specifically. And I find that to be fantastic. I find that to be wonderful that I can share in someone else's joy in that way. And I think as writers, we ought to, as consumers of media, I think we ought to sort of move up the ladder a little bit beyond just the pictures we see on the screen and into the joy and energy of the storytelling that came from everybody, the craft involved and the art involved. But also, it's just, you find that you will find things that you like even in categories you don't like.
Yeah.
And I mean, I I would say that I'm not exactly a huge fan of, of traditional period pieces, but I of course can understand and appreciate the joy of and energy and experience of Downton Abbey, even though it's not necessarily I wouldn't necessarily watch it based on the subject matter alone. So willingness to open up those gates has given me a smorgasbord of things that I enjoy. And I think that closing ourselves off can, particularly as creative people, is a mistake. I think that we need to not close ourselves off. And you see it in all types of art. It's people, post online. This is a drawing I did, and I did it using, instead of using pencils, I used burnt hair, or something, because they just thought it would make a nice medium. So like, we try new things, we taste new things, and we inject that into our writing. Jade mentions in the chat that something about the finale of John Wick 4. I'm not going to mention even the small detail you mentioned, Jade, just out of the interest of spoilers, but Jade was moved almost to tears of awe by the execution of the story. And I think that and I was too. It was beautiful and metaphorical and symbolic in ways that, intentional or not, I saw. And so it's a work of art and a masterpiece. And I feel like the storytelling lessons we can take from it are fantastic. And also the audience responses. There's a reason that doing these fortnightly chats, they tend to be action movies or visceral thrills. It's because I choose what to talk about, not only by what I'm a fan of, but by what people out there seem to be talking about. People were talking about Cocaine Bear. People are talking about John Wick 4. So the audience is there and they get excited by it. They get excited by these things to the point where they're having conversations, they're posting about it on social media, they're breaking it down, talking about what was your favorite part. And it mirrors the feelings, the experiences I had when I was 10, 12 years old, and I'd go see Star Wars. And then, while my friends and I were climbing trees or whatever out there, be like, ooh, what about that part where Luke Skywalker blew up the thing? Ooh, what about the part that childlike wanting to relive the moments that you just experienced is something that we as writers ought to be striving to capture it all the time.
It's those characters that stay with you. You mentioned Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
I live in that world once a day. I remember one of those characters and I think, oh, isn't it lovely when you can watch, not lovely, I couldn't think of a better word than that, isn't it, when characters stay with you, when you've watched something and it's affected you. And that's my favorite thing. That was, again, in my childhood, that was my favorite thing that took me out of the circumstances that I was in. That's what I want to do with my writing. And, yeah, they cling to you energetically. They cling to you.
Yeah.
And sometimes you want to be in their world, as you say in Star Wars. While you were playing and you were in that world. I want to hang out with the people in Ted Lasso. I want to go on a night with them.
I fully agree, and I think that particularly with something like Ted Lasso, where it's what I would term a hangout show. In terms of, look, I think that show does incredibly fantastic things in terms of character growth, themes, story, plot, the whole thing. Don't get me wrong, but even without all that stuff, I would just enjoy hanging out with them for an hour.
Yeah.
And I don't know from football. And it doesn't matter. It takes place in the world of football, but it has more to say. And I think that's something that valuable that we can bring to the world. And I hope that all the writers who are watching now, who are here, who watch it on YouTube later, hi YouTubers, I hope that all of us who are striving to bring writing, bring film, bring photography, music, whatever it is you're trying to bring into the world, religion, that you're doing it from a place of, we can make people's lives more joyous. We can make people's lives more wonderful, or we can at least make people recognize that they're not alone out there in what can be a very sort of lonely journey. And with that, I think I've probably said the perfect thing. So maybe I should get out now. Thank you guys for showing up. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Please check out my website, Null, if you want to take any screenwriting courses. I am Bob Schultz. Write with joy and confidence. Wakanda forever. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye, everybody.